To understand how one man united the Mongolian steppe, look at what he was up against. For generations, this unforgiving landscape was fractured by endless tribal warfare, ruled by a strict old-world aristocracy where bloodline dictated everything. Early in his life, a young leader named Temujin faced a military defeat so crushing it should have erased him from history. He was routed by his own former blood brother, Jamuka. But instead of disappearing, Temujin spent the following years traveling the steppes, studying his loss, and recruiting a new kind of army. Jamuka represented the traditional Mongolian order. He commanded the support of noble families and firmly believed that leadership belonged exclusively to those born into powerful aristocratic bloodlines. Temujin implemented a different approach, a strict meritocracy. He decided that a shepherd who showed bravery in battle would be promoted higher than the son of a powerful chief, based entirely on their measurable performance. He rewarded talent, regardless of where it came from. By rewarding capability over lineage, Temujin actively dismantled the centuries-old power structure that kept men like Jamuka in charge. The rivalry between the two men escalated into a brutal, unavoidable ideological war over the future of the steppe. To survive this conflict, Temujin formed a strategic alliance with Togrul, the powerful ruler of the Karaite tribe. Togrul had been a close friend of Temujin's father, and he took the young warrior under his wing, treating him almost like a son. Together, their combined forces became a formidable presence. They swept across the region, defeating several rival tribes in rapid succession and drawing thousands of new warriors to Temujin's banner. But that rapid expansion triggered panic within Togrul's own family. Togrul's son, Sengum, watched Temujin's influence grow and began whispering in his father's ear, poisoning his mind with fears that this rising commander would eventually steal the throne. The paranoia worked. The man Temujin considered a father figure suddenly turned against him. Togrul launched a devastating nighttime attack without warning, catching Temujin completely off guard and scattering his forces into the darkness. This disaster tested the stability of his new order. His followers remained loyal because they were part of a system that rewarded their individual service, rather than one governed by the whims of a traditional tribal chief. They chose to stay and fight for the man who had elevated them. Temujin refused to surrender. Instead, he spent the next few months quietly pulling his surviving loyalists together and meticulously rebuilding his army. In 1203, he unleashed his revenge. Temujin launched a blistering counterattack that completely dismantled Togrul's forces, collapsing the once dominant Karaite kingdom in a matter of days. Togrul managed to flee the battlefield, but his escape was short-lived. He was killed shortly after by members of another tribe who failed to recognize the former ruler. The fall of the Karaite kingdom removed a major rival and the man who had been a surrogate father figure. Now, only Jamuka remained between Temujin and total control of Mongolia. Jamuka knew what was coming. He scrambled to assemble a massive coalition of tribal leaders who were terrified of losing their independence to Temujin's expanding control. To counter this massive force, Temujin introduced a mathematical reform to his military. He stripped away traditional tribal divisions and reorganized his entire army into highly disciplined blocks of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000 men. This gave him precise control over enormous numbers of soldiers. He paired this structure with ruthless enforcement. If one soldier deserted his post, his entire 10-man unit faced severe punishment. This collective liability forced the men to police each other, creating unbreakable bonds on the battlefield. He also maximized their speed. Every single warrior was required to bring multiple horses on campaign, allowing the army to constantly swap mounts and cover vast distances faster than any enemy thought possible. The effectiveness of this system peaked in 1204. Temujin's forces annihilated the powerful Naiman tribe in western Mongolia. Seeing this level of absolute destruction, Jamuka's terrified allies began deserting him in droves. Temujin replaced traditional tribal warfare with a scalable, disciplined command structure. This organizational advantage allowed him to systematically dismantle the coalition's resistance. Left with no army, Jamuka was eventually captured by his own men and brought before Temujin. Honoring their childhood friendship one last time, Temujin granted his rival's final request, a noble death without the spilling of blood. In 1206, the unified leaders of Mongolia gathered at a grand assembly known as a Kurultai. There, Temujin was formally proclaimed the supreme ruler of all Mongols and given a new title, Genghis Khan. This manuscript represents the Yasa, a codified set of civic laws he immediately established to lay out harsh, unforgiving punishments for theft and disobedience. Alongside those strict penalties, he instituted progressive policies. He formally guaranteed religious tolerance across his territory and strictly protected traveling merchants to encourage trade. With his homeland finally stable, Genghis Khan looked beyond the steppe. He set his sights on the valuable trade routes of Central Asia, the immense riches of Persia, and the divided states of China. The unification of the steppe provided Genghis Khan with a singular, battle-hardened military force. He was now prepared to lead these warriors beyond the horizon to challenge the world's most powerful empires.